The Poisoned Secret. Part 1. The Beginning of the Nightmare. Sophia Wilson was one of the best chefs in the city. She worked at Elysian Bites, a high-end restaurant where people came from all over to try her unique dishes. Sophia loved her job. Cooking was her passion, and she put her heart and soul into every meal. One day, a big event was planned at the restaurant. It was a charity dinner, and many important people were invited. Sophia spent hours preparing a special dish for the evening. Her famous truffle risotto with lemon cream sauce. It was her signature dish, and everyone loved it. The dinner started smoothly. The guests were happy, chatting and laughing as they enjoyed the food. Sophia peeked through the kitchen door and smiled. Seeing people enjoy her cooking always made her happy. But soon, the laughter stopped. A man at one of the tables collapsed. People gasped and rushed to his side. Someone called an ambulance. The staff quickly cleared the table and tried to calm the guests. Sophia stood frozen in the kitchen. She didn't understand what was happening. A few minutes later, a waitress ran in. "Sophia," she said, her voice shaking. "They think the man was poisoned by the risotto." "Your risotto?" Sophia felt like the air had been knocked out of her. "That's impossible," she said. "I made that dish myself. I used fresh ingredients. I would never." The waitress shook her head. "I know, Sophia, but the guests are scared. The police are on their way." Within minutes, the restaurant was swarming with police officers. They interviewed the staff and took samples of the food. One officer, Detective Mark Harris, approached Sophia. "You're the chef who prepared the risotto, correct?" he asked. Sophia nodded. "Yes, but I swear, I don't know how this happened. I checked everything carefully. No one got sick from my food before." Detective Harris didn't seem convinced. "We'll need you to come to the station for questioning," he said. Sophia's boss, Mr. Collins, stepped forward. "Detective, I've worked with Sophia for years. She's honest and hardworking. This must be a mistake." But the detective was firm. "We'll investigate further, but right now we need to rule out all possibilities." That night, Sophia sat in the police station, answering question after question. They asked about her ingredients, her process, and her movements during the dinner. She told them everything she could remember, but the more she talked, the more nervous she felt. When they finally let her go, it was late. Sophia returned to her small apartment, but she couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing. "Who would want to do this?" she whispered to herself. "Why would someone ruin my dish? And why now, during such an important event?" The next morning, things got worse. News about the poisoned risotto spread quickly. Headlines called her the deadly chef. Reporters waited outside the restaurant, and angry customers demanded refunds. Mr. Collins called her into his office. He looked tired and upset. "Sophia, I believe you didn't do this, but the restaurant's reputation is on the line. We need to close for a few days while the investigation continues. Sophia nodded, tears in her eyes. I understand, Mr. Collins, but deep down, she knew she couldn't just sit and wait. She had to find out what really happened. Someone was trying to frame her, and if she didn't act fast, her career and her life would be ruined. As Sophia walked home that evening, she decided to start her own investigation. She would go back to the kitchen, check every ingredient, and talk to every staff member. This is my life, she thought. I won't let anyone destroy it. And so, Sophia's journey to uncover the truth began. Little did she know, the path ahead would be full of danger and secrets she never expected. Part 2. The Hidden Clues. Sophia spent the night thinking about what could have gone wrong. She sat on her couch, looking at her notebook where she wrote all her recipes. The truffle risotto with lemon cream sauce was a dish she had made hundreds of times. She knew every step by heart. I must have missed something, she whispered to herself. But what? The next morning, she decided to return to the restaurant. It was closed to the public, but Mr. Collins had given her permission to come in and check the kitchen. She put on her chef's coat, tied her hair back, and stepped into the quiet, empty space. The kitchen, which was usually full of laughter and noise, now felt strange and cold. The counters were spotless, the pots and pans neatly stacked, but Sophia felt uneasy. She started by checking the ingredients. The truffles were stored in a small container in the fridge. She opened it and took a sniff. They smelled fresh, just as they should. Next, she checked the lemon cream sauce. It was stored in a jar, sealed tightly. She tasted a small amount. It was perfect. I don't understand, she muttered. Everything seems fine. Sophia then looked at the rice. It was kept in a large, labeled container. She scooped a handful and examined it closely. Nothing seemed unusual. As she continued to inspect the kitchen, her mind wandered. She thought about the staff. Everyone she worked with was kind and hardworking. But could someone have made a mistake? Or worse, could someone have done this on purpose? Sophia's thoughts were interrupted when the back door creaked open. Startled, she turned around to see Claire, one of the waitresses, standing in the doorway. Claire, you scared me, Sophia said, placing a hand on her chest. Sorry, Sophia, Claire said, stepping inside. I heard you might be here. I wanted to check on you. How are you holding up? Sophia sighed. Not great. I don't know what happened. Claire, I've checked everything, and nothing seems wrong. But someone poisoned my dish. Someone is trying to ruin me. Claire looked worried. Do you think it was someone from the staff? I don't want to believe that, Sophia said, shaking her head. But I don't know who else it could be. The kitchen is locked at night, and only the staff has access to the ingredients. Claire hesitated for a moment. There's something I didn't tell the police yesterday, she said quietly. Sophia's eyes widened. What is it? Before the dinner started, I saw someone near the kitchen. Claire said. I thought it was strange because they weren't supposed to be there. It was Thomas, the dishwasher. Thomas, Sophia repeated. Why would he be in the kitchen before the event? He doesn't handle the food. I don't know, Claire said. But he looked nervous. When I asked him what he was doing, he said he was just looking for a mop. It didn't seem right, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Sophia felt a surge of hope. This could be a lead. Thank you, Claire, she said. This might help me figure out what's going on. After Claire left, Sophia decided to talk to Thomas. She found his phone number in the staff contact list and called him. Hello, Thomas answered, sounding surprised. Thomas, it's Sophia, she said. Can we meet? I need to talk to you about something important. Sure, he said hesitantly. When? Now, Sophia replied. At the park near the restaurant. 30 minutes later, Sophia met Thomas at a small bench under a tree. He looked nervous, avoiding eye contact. Thomas, I need to ask you something, Sophia began. Claire told me she saw you in the kitchen before the event. What were you doing there? Thomas's face turned red. I wasn't doing anything bad, he stammered. Thomas, please, Sophia said gently. This is serious. Someone poisoned the food, and I need to find out who did it. If you know anything, you have to tell me. Thomas looked around, as if checking to see if anyone was listening. Then he leaned closer. Okay, he whispered. I'll tell you, but you can't tell anyone I said this. I promise, Sophia said. I was in the kitchen because I saw someone else go in there. Thomas admitted. It was Jake, the sous chef. He was messing with the ingredients. When I asked him what he was doing, he got angry and told me to mind my own business. Sophia felt a lump in her throat. Jake was her second in command. He had been working with her for years. Could he really be behind this? Why didn't you tell the police? Sophia asked. I was scared, Thomas said. Jake is the boss when you're not around. If he finds out I talked, he'll make my life miserable. Sophia's mind was racing. If Jake was involved, she needed proof. She couldn't just accuse him without evidence. Thank you, Thomas, she said. You did the right thing by telling me. That night, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about Jake. Why would he do something like this? Was he jealous of her success? Or was there another reason? The next morning, Sophia decided to confront him. But first, she needed to plan carefully. If Jake was behind the poisoning, he wouldn't give up the truth easily. And so, Sophia prepared herself for the next step in her journey to uncover the real culprit. She didn't know what she would find, but she was determined to keep going, no matter what. Part 3. The Confrontation. Sophia spent the morning pacing in her small apartment. She couldn't stop thinking about what Thomas had told her. Jake, her sous chef, had been in the kitchen messing with the ingredients. It didn't make sense. Jake had always been professional. He had been her right-hand man for years, helping her perfect recipes and run the busy kitchen. But now, doubts crept into her mind. Had she missed something? Was Jake hiding a side of himself she had never seen before? Sophia decided to confront him directly. She wanted to give him a chance to explain himself. But she also knew she had to be careful. If Jake was guilty, he might try to cover his tracks. She arrived at the restaurant in the afternoon. Jake was already there, sitting in the dining area, staring at his phone. He looked up as she walked in. "Sophia," he said, standing up. "Hey, how are you holding up?" Sophia forced a small smile. "Not great, Jake. I've been thinking about what happened. I need to figure this out. Can we talk privately?" "Of course," Jake said, looking concerned. They moved to the kitchen, the place where they had spent countless hours working together. Sophia leaned against the counter, trying to calm her racing thoughts. "Jake, I need to ask you something," she said. Her voice was steady, but inside, she felt a mix of anger and fear. "Sure, Sophia. What's on your mind?" Sophia took a deep breath. "Thomas told me he saw you in the kitchen before the event. He said you were handling the ingredients. What were you doing?" Jake's face changed. For a moment, he looked surprised. Then his expression hardened. "Are you accusing me of something, Sophia?" "I'm not accusing you," Sophia said quickly. "I just want to understand what happened. If you were in the kitchen, I need to know why." Jake crossed his arms. "I was checking the truffles," he said. "They didn't look fresh to me, so I replaced them with a new batch. I didn't think it was a big deal." Sophia frowned. "Why didn't you tell me? I'm the head chef. You should have come to me if you thought there was a problem." "I didn't want to bother you," Jake said. His tone was defensive. "You were busy with other things, and I thought I was helping." Sophia studied his face. Something about his explanation didn't feel right. Jake was usually careful and precise. It wasn't like him to make decisions without consulting her. "Jake, this is serious," Sophia said. "A man was poisoned, and the police are investigating. If there's something you're not telling me, now is the time to come clean." Jake's jaw tightened. "I told you everything, Sophia. I didn't do anything wrong." Sophia felt frustrated. She wanted to believe him, but she couldn't ignore the possibility that he was lying. Before she could say more, the sound of footsteps interrupted them. Detective Mark Harris walked into the kitchen, holding a folder. "Miss Wilson, Mr. Jake," he said, nodding at them. "I need to speak with both of you." Sophia's heart sank. "What is it, Detective?" "We received the lab results from the food samples," Harris said, opening the folder. The poison was found in the lemon cream sauce. Sophia's eyes widened. "The sauce? That doesn't make sense. I made the sauce myself and it was fine." Harris looked at her. "Are you sure no one else touched it?" I don't think so," Sophia stammered. She glanced at Jake, whose expression was unreadable. Harris continued. We also checked the security footage from the back entrance. It shows someone entering the kitchen late at night, hours before the event. Unfortunately, the footage isn't clear enough to identify the person. Sophia felt a chill run through her. Someone had been in the kitchen. Someone had tampered with her ingredients. Do you have any idea who it could be? Harris asked. Sophia hesitated. She didn't want to accuse Jake without solid proof. I'm not sure, she said finally. Harris nodded. We're still investigating. In the meantime, I suggest you both stay available for further questioning. After the detective left, an uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. Sophia turned to Jake. Do you have any idea who it could be? She asked. Jake shook his head. I don't know, Sophia. But if someone is trying to frame you, we need to find out who it is. Sophia didn't respond. She didn't know what to think anymore. That evening, Sophia decided to do something she had never done before. She called one of the restaurant's suppliers, a man named Carlos who delivered the ingredients every week. Carlos, it's Sophia from Elysian Bites, she said. I need to ask you something about the last delivery. Sure, Sophia. What do you need to know? Did anyone else pick up the delivery or handle the ingredients before they got to the kitchen? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Actually, now that you mention it, someone did stop by, Carlos said. He said he was from your staff. Tall guy, dark hair. He said he wanted to check the order before you got it. Sophia's stomach sank. She knew exactly who Carlos was describing. Did he say his name? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No, but he seemed in a hurry, Carlos said. I didn't think much of it. Sophia hung up the phone, her hands shaking. The description matched Jake perfectly. She realized she couldn't trust him anymore. But she needed more proof before she could go to the police. Sophia decided to take matters into her own hands. She would keep a close eye on Jake and gather evidence. This wasn't just about clearing her name anymore. It was about stopping whoever was behind this before they hurt someone else. Part 4. The Unraveling Truth. Sophia couldn't sleep that night. The conversation with Carlos had only made things worse. If Jake was the one who had taken the ingredients, why would he lie to her? Had he really been trying to help her? Or was he part of something darker? She didn't know who to trust anymore. The next morning, she arrived at the restaurant early, hoping to get some answers. The kitchen was quiet, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. It should have been comforting, but today, it felt empty. She had a strange feeling in her stomach. Jake was already there, setting up the kitchen for the lunch rush. He looked up when she entered, and his face brightened. Morning, Sophia. How's everything? Sophia gave him a small nod, trying to act normal, even though her mind was racing. I'm fine. Just a little tired. Jake didn't seem to notice her tension. Well, you deserve some rest. You've been working so hard. He smiled, but there was something in his eyes that made her feel uneasy. "I need to talk to you," Sophia said, her voice steady but firm. Jake stopped what he was doing and turned to face her. "Sure. What's up?" Sophia took a deep breath. "I called Carlos last night. He told me that someone from the staff picked up the delivery before it came to the kitchen. A tall guy with dark hair." She paused. "Jake, was that you?" Jake's eyes widened for a moment, then quickly narrowed. "Sophia, come on. What are you trying to say?" "I'm trying to understand what happened," she said, keeping her voice calm. "Carlos described the person perfectly. It sounds like you." For a moment, Jake didn't say anything. He just stared at her, his face unreadable. Then finally he spoke. "It wasn't me. I didn't touch the delivery, Sophia. I don't know what Carlos is talking about." Sophia felt a rush of frustration. "Jake, I want to believe you, but there's too much happening here. A man was poisoned, and now there's evidence that something went wrong with the ingredients. You were in the kitchen. I need to know the truth." Jake looked away for a second, running his fingers through his hair. When he finally looked at her again, his eyes were filled with worry. "I don't know who did it, Sophia. I swear." Sophia didn't know what to think. She was tired of the guessing game, but she also didn't want to make a wrong move. The truth was right in front of her, but she couldn't see it clearly. "I'll be watching you," Sophia said quietly, turning to walk away. "If you're hiding something, I will find out." She left the kitchen, feeling a weight on her chest. This wasn't just about the poison anymore. It was about trust. And right now, she didn't know who she could trust. That afternoon, Sophia decided to dig deeper. She had already questioned Carlos, and now she needed to check the restaurant's security footage. The cameras weren't always reliable, but maybe there was something she had missed. She went to the small office in the back of the restaurant and sat down at the computer. The footage from the previous night was stored on a hard drive. Sophia plugged it in and began searching through the hours of video. At first, nothing stood out. The usual kitchen bustle. Jake working with the other chefs. Customers arriving and leaving. But then she saw something strange. At 10:45 p.m., a figure entered the kitchen through the back door. The person was wearing a large jacket and a hat that covered their face, but their movements were familiar. Sophia leaned in closer. The person seemed to be moving with confidence, like they knew exactly what they were doing. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. The person in the video walked over to the storage area where the ingredients were kept. They pulled out a box of truffles and then moved to the counter. For a moment, the figure seemed to hesitate, as if unsure of what to do. Then, they reached into a cabinet and grabbed a small vial. The person uncorked the vial and poured something into the truffles. Sophia couldn't tell exactly what it was, but the action was clear. Her breath caught in her throat. This was it. Whoever had done this had poisoned the ingredients. And now Sophia had proof. But there was one problem. The figure in the video was still unrecognizable. Sophia watched the footage over and over, but no matter how many times she looked, she couldn't see the person's face clearly. The hat was too low, the jacket too large. Whoever had done this knew exactly how to cover their tracks. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Sophia quickly closed the video and turned to face the intruder. It was Thomas, the head waiter. "Sophia, we need to talk," he said, his voice urgent. Sophia nodded, standing up. "What is it, Thomas?" "There's something you should know," he said, stepping into the room. "I overheard a conversation last night between Jake and someone else. They were talking about the event, about the dish. It didn't sound good." Sophia's heart pounded in her chest. "What were they saying?" Thomas hesitated. "I didn't hear everything, but it sounded like they were worried about getting caught." Sophia felt the weight of his words. If Jake was talking to someone else, that meant he wasn't working alone. There was someone else involved in the plot. She needed to find out who. And fast. "I need you to keep an eye on Jake," Sophia said, her voice steady. "If he does anything suspicious, let me know immediately." Thomas nodded, and without another word, he left. Sophia sat back down at the computer, her mind racing. She had to act quickly. If Jake and his mysterious accomplice were involved in poisoning people, they wouldn't stop until they had covered their tracks completely. The truth was slipping through her fingers, but she wasn't going to let it go that easily. Part 5. The Chase for the Real Killer. The next few days felt like a blur to Sophia. The restaurant was busy, and the pressure of keeping everything running smoothly was weighing on her. But beneath all the usual kitchen noise and chaos, Sophia couldn't forget about the poisonings. She couldn't forget the face of the mysterious figure she had seen in the security footage. Whoever they were connected to the crime, and they needed to be found. After talking to Thomas, Sophia knew she couldn't trust Jake completely. He might not be the one who poisoned the food, but he was hiding something. The more she thought about it, the more she realized Jake wasn't the only one who could have done it. There were other people who had access to the kitchen. Other people who could have poisoned the food. Sophia decided to ask around. She needed to get more information about everyone who worked in the kitchen. Maybe someone had seen something strange. Maybe someone knew something they hadn't shared yet. She started with Michelle, one of the junior chefs. Michelle had been working at the restaurant for a year, and Sophia trusted her. They were good friends. Michelle was quiet but very careful about the food she prepared. "Michelle," Sophia said, finding her in the kitchen one afternoon. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Michelle looked up, a little surprised. "Sure, Sophia. What's going on?" Sophia hesitated before asking, "Did you notice anything strange over the last few days? Anything unusual happening in the kitchen? Maybe with the ingredients or the deliveries?" Michelle looked nervous for a moment, then shook her head. "I didn't see anything, Sophia. Everything was normal." Sophia frowned. But then she noticed Michelle's face shift, as if she was holding something back. "Michelle, you can tell me if something's bothering you," Sophia said gently. Michelle bit her lip, then sighed. "There was one thing, but it's probably nothing." Sophia leaned in. "What is it?" "I saw Jake acting a little weird," Michelle said. "A couple of days ago, after the delivery arrived, he was acting very nervous. He kept checking the delivery box, and when he thought no one was looking, he took something out of it. I don't know what it was, but he looked scared, like he was trying to hide it." Sophia's heart started to race. This was it. Jake had taken something from the delivery, and now she had another piece of the puzzle. "Did you see what he took?" Sophia asked, her voice shaking slightly. "No, I didn't. But I know it wasn't food. He kept it in his pocket." Sophia's mind raced. This was starting to make sense. Jake had been hiding something. But what? And why had he been so nervous? "Thank you, Michelle," Sophia said, giving her a reassuring smile. "You did the right thing by telling me." Michelle nodded and returned to her work, but Sophia stayed there for a moment, thinking. She had to find out what Jake had taken. Maybe it wasn't just a simple mistake. Maybe it was something important. Later that day, Sophia went back to the storage area where the ingredients were kept. She knew Jake had been there, but now she needed to see if anything was missing. She walked slowly, checking each shelf carefully. When she reached the back of the storage area, she froze. There, on the far shelf, was a small box with a label on it. The label read, "Poisonous extract, for testing only." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Poisonous extract? Was this the substance that had been used to poison the dishes? She quickly opened the box and found a small vial inside. It was almost empty, but there was enough liquid left to confirm what she feared. This was the same substance she had seen on the security footage. The same substance that had been poured into the truffles. Sophia knew she had to act fast. She couldn't waste any more time. Jake had been hiding the poisonous extract, and he had been using it. But why? She decided to confront him. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. She called Carlos and Thomas and told them to meet her in the office. She needed backup. The three of them gathered in the office, and Sophia showed them the vial of poisonous extract. "Jake has been hiding this," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I found it in the storage area." Carlos's eyes widened. "That's the poison. I knew it. I knew someone was behind this." Thomas nodded, looking worried. "But what do we do now? We can't just accuse him without proof." Sophia sighed. "I know. But we need to catch him in the act. We need to see him using it." Carlos looked at her. "But how do we get him to do that? He's careful. He won't make a mistake." Sophia thought for a moment. "I have an idea. We'll prepare a dish. A special one that Jake is always in charge of. We'll make sure to use the ingredients that he's been hiding. and we'll have a hidden camera in the kitchen to catch him red-handed." Everyone agreed that it was the only way to get the evidence they needed. They had to be smart about it. Jake had to be caught in the act. Sophia felt a mix of anger and fear. She had known Jake for years, and now she was about to set a trap for him, but she couldn't back down. There were lives at stake. They spent the next few hours preparing the dish, making sure everything was perfect. Then, they set up the hidden camera, hoping it would catch Jake's next move. As the clock ticked, Sophia waited nervously. She knew the truth was close, but she didn't know what the outcome would be. Would Jake fall into their trap, or would he escape once again? One thing was certain. Sophia wouldn't stop until she had all the answers. She had come too far to give up now. Part 6. The final reveal. The kitchen was quiet, but the air was thick with tension. Sophia, Carlos, and Thomas stood in the shadows, waiting for the moment when everything would change. The hidden camera was in place, and the special dish they had prepared was ready. All they had to do now was wait for Jake to walk into the kitchen and do what they knew he would. Sophia kept her eyes on the door, her heart pounding. The plan had been set. She knew it was dangerous, but there was no other choice. She couldn't let Jake get away with poisoning the customers and ruining the reputation of the restaurant. Carlos stood by the counter, pretending to check the supplies. Thomas kept his back to the door, keeping an eye on the time. They all knew what they were waiting for. It was just a matter of time before Jake showed up. Finally, the door creaked open. Jake walked in, looking tired but still carrying himself with his usual confident swagger. He didn't notice the camera in the corner of the room. Sophia's breath caught in her chest as she watched him approach the counter. He didn't suspect anything. Jake walked straight over to the dish they had prepared. He smiled, running his fingers through his hair. "Perfect," he muttered. "It's just the way I like it." Sophia could barely believe what she was hearing. This was it. Jake was about to do what he always did. He was about to poison the dish again. He began to sprinkle something into the sauce. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She could see it now, the same substance from the vial, the poisonous extract. Jake had been adding it all along. Sophia stepped forward, stepping out of the shadows. "Stop, Jake," she said, her voice sharp. Jake froze. For a moment, it looked like he was about to turn and run. But then, he saw the camera. His face drained of color. "What is this?" Jake asked, his voice shaking. "What do you want?" "You're caught, Jake," Sophia said firmly. "I know what you've been doing. You've been poisoning the food. You've been using that poisonous extract to hurt people, and now it's over." Jake looked around, panic in his eyes. He didn't know what to say. He tried to take a step back, but Carlos and Thomas blocked his way. They had been ready for this moment. "You can't do this to me," Jake said, his voice desperate. "You don't understand. I had no choice. I needed the money." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "Money? Is that why you poisoned people? Jake sighed and dropped his shoulders. Yes, he admitted, his voice quiet. I needed money. I had debts. Big ones. And when I heard about the expensive insurance policy the restaurant had, I thought, maybe if I made the food sick, people would stay away. I thought maybe they would pay out the insurance. I didn't think anyone would get hurt. Sophia's anger burned inside her. You didn't think anyone would get hurt? People could have died because of you. And for what? Money? That's what this was all about. Jake shook his head. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but I was in over my head. I didn't know who to turn to. I just thought, if I could make the restaurant lose business, I'd be able to pay off everything. Sophia's mind raced. This was all so unbelievable. She had known Jake for years, worked side by side with him, and never suspected him of anything like this. I don't know what to say to you. Jake, Sophia said, feeling both sad and angry. You could have ruined everything for everyone. This restaurant, our team, the people we serve. You almost destroyed it all. Jake hung his head, unable to meet her gaze. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. Please, don't tell the police. I can fix it. I'll pay everything back. I'll make it right. Sophia looked at Carlos and Thomas. They were both watching the scene carefully, their faces serious. Sophia took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. You've hurt a lot of people, Jake, Carlos said quietly, and no one can just forget about it. You need to face the consequences. Sophia nodded. I can't protect you, Jake. The police will have to be called. You've gone too far. Jake's eyes filled with tears. He had ruined everything, and there was no turning back now. Sophia took out her phone and dialed the police. She knew it was the right thing to do, even if it was hard. She couldn't let someone who had done so much damage get away with it. Within minutes, the police arrived. They took Jake into custody, and the poisonous extract was taken as evidence. Sophia felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. It was over, but it hadn't been easy. As the police led Jake away, Sophia looked at the team, Carlos, Thomas, and Michelle. They had all worked together to solve the mystery, and now the restaurant could start to heal. Sophia sighed, feeling the weight lifting off her shoulders. The poisonings had stopped. The restaurant was safe again. Later that night, Sophia sat in the office, alone. She looked out the window, lost in thought. It had been a long journey, filled with uncertainty, but now it was finally over. She had saved the restaurant. She had uncovered the truth, and she had proven that the people she trusted were always worth trusting. But deep down, Sophia knew something. No matter how hard things had been, she would never forget the lessons she had learned. The importance of honesty, trust, and always doing the right thing, even when it wasn't easy. And she knew one more thing for sure. No matter what, she would always protect the people who came to her restaurant. She would make sure they were safe. And that would always be her first priority. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.